We're going to look at lesson 109, and this will actually, our next lesson will tie 109 and 108 together. We're going to talk about two variable equations. So first of all, what is an equation? An equation is a set of information with an equal sign. 2x equals 4, and then you solve for x. Two variables means there's an x and a y. You can have any two variables, but because we're talking about linear algebra at this point, which is just graphing of lines, it's going to be x and y because we're using an x and y coordinate system. This lesson isn't so much about graphing anything, it's about getting the information together that we will then use to graph. So the questions today are going to be like this. Find 5 possible solutions for the equation. I'm not sure why there's an S there, except I mistyped, for the equation, and then you're given an equation. In this case, the equation is 2x minus y equals 3. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to use a thing called a T-chart, and people hate T-charts for some reason. The reality is they're very simple. The T-chart is called a T-chart because you're going to make a T. The left side is going to be x. The right side is going to be y. So T-chart, x and y. And here is where people, for some reason, freak out. You can pick any 5 values for x. I'm going to tell you, you need to choose negatives and positives and choose easy numbers. Don't pick like negative 27 or something ridiculous. What I am going to suggest that you do is pick negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2. These are like the simplest in my brain numbers to work with. And then what we're going to do, so what we've done is we've made a T-chart. X, Y, right? So that's my first step. Second step, pick values for x. Then my third step, and I'm actually going to clean this thing off here and make this a little bit more presentable before we do it. We are going to fill those values in to solve for y. So let me clean this up and let me show you what that's going to actually look like. So here's our T-chart, done a little bit neater. It gives me a little bit more space to work. We've made a T-chart, we've picked our values for x and y, and then we're going to just plug every single one of these values in. So let's start with our negative 2. If x is negative 2, what is the value for y? So we're going to plug x in right here to this equation. Instead of x, we're going to plug in negative 2. And then we're going to just solve this down till we find the value for y. So now I'm going to just solve this down. 2 times negative 2 is negative 4 minus y equals 3. Move my 4 over, so I have negative y equals 3 plus 4. Negative y equals 7, but I have to get rid of that negative, so y equals negative 7. So when x is negative 2, y is negative 7. Now I'm going to do that pretty quickly because I've done this for a very long time. Don't worry about it taking you a very long time, okay? So now we're going to we plugged in our negative 2. And so before you even start saying, I have to do this for every single one of these problems, the answer is yes. Yes, you do. That's why I said pick easy numbers. So now let's find the value when x is negative 1. 2 times negative 1 minus y equals 3. Negative 2 minus y equals 3. Move my negative 2 over, minus y equals 3 plus 2, which is 5, but I have a negative. So y equals negative 5. So when x is negative 1, y is negative 5. And again, don't worry about this taking you so long. Just do it at your own space. Ooh, I don't know if you heard that pin make that horrid noise. Sorry about that. Now let's do 0. When x is 0, what is y? 2 times 0 minus y equals 3. 0 minus y equals 3. Negative y equals 3. Got to get rid of this negative by dividing by a negative 1, so y equals negative 3. So when x is 0, y is negative 3. Now let's do the same thing. I really didn't even need to erase that. I just realized I could have just changed the one number, but that's okay. All right, so now let's do if x is 1. Now you can't just change this sign, okay, because the negative 1 is going to change a lot more than just the sign there, all right? So if x is 1, we're going to do 2 times 1 minus y equals 3. 2 times 1 is 2. Now, the reality is it may not change it every single time, but it usually will. Move my 2 over, so 3 minus 2, negative y equals 1. Move this over, y equals negative 1. Now, let's do 2. And what I just realized, I can just change that and not all of that. But you don't need to be erasing this. You just need to be using the rest of your paper. So if x is 2, what is y? 2 times 2, 4 minus y equals 3. So move the 4 over, becomes, not plus, becomes minus 4. So y equals negative 1. I've got this negative, so y equals 1. Okay, so y equals 1. All right, so now I did a t-chart, picked values for x, plugged those values in, solved for y. The math of this is not hard. That's just a lot of different things we're doing. And there's not any, I mean, if you have a calculator, you can type those equations in, that's fine, but you still have to solve for every single value. So step 1, t-chart. Step 2, pick values. Step 3, plug those in. Step 3, every single one of these sets is a point. Remember, on our points, we were graphing x, then y. So point 1 is negative 2, negative 7. Now, let me, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, so negative 2, negative 7 is going to be here. Negative 1, negative 5, negative 1, negative 5, 0, negative 3. And you should see quickly these are lining up to make a line. If you have points all over the place, it's wrong. You should have a semblance of a straight line. Then we have 1, negative 1. Then we have 2, positive 1. Now you can see that that kind of curves up, but I also didn't draw this exactly right. But then you're going to plot your line. So step 1, t-chart. Step 2, values for x. Step 3, solve for y. Step 4, plot your points. Step 5, connect to make your line. Let's do another one. This is the first one in your classwork. Find 5 possible solutions for y equals x. Now I've already put on here a t-chart. You don't have that in your book. You're going to have to make one. And then I've also implanted this here so I can graph it a little better. Now, y equals x is our equation. And this one's real easy because if I plug in negative 2, I get y equals negative 2. If I plug in negative 1, I get y equals negative 1. Y equals 0, y equals 1, y equals, oops, I don't know why I put a negative there, y equals 2. So t-chart, plug them in, and now we just plot our points. X is negative 2, y is negative 2. X is negative 1, y is negative 1. 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 2, and then there is my line. So that one's really easy. So this one's not going to be as easy, and I think this is the third one in your classwork. I think it's the third one. So I've already made your t-chart for you, and I always use the same numbers. It doesn't matter which ones you use. Again, you need 5 different numbers. I had a kid turn in a whole lesson of this last year, and they had 1 for every single one. Well, that's going to output the same answer every time. So pick 5 different ones. And now we're going to plug that in. And now this one's going to take a little bit more work. So if I plug in negative 2 and then begin to solve this down. Negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1. 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. So when x is negative 2, y is negative 2. All right, let's do that now with negative 1. Oops, that's not where that parenthesis goes. 2 times negative 1 plus 1. Well, -1 plus 1 is 0, so my answer is 0. So when x is -1, y is 0. Now let's do 0. 2 times 0 plus 1. Remember, we're plugging it in here. I may not have said that. 0 plus 1 is 1. 2 times 1 is 2. So when x is 0, when x is 0, y is 2. Now let's clean this up so I can fit in my other ones here. When x is 1, there we go. When x is 1, 2 times 1 plus 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. So when x is 1, y is 4. And then let's plug in positive 2. 2 plus 1 is 3. 2 times 3 is 6. So when x is 2, y is 6. So T-chart, pick my values, plug them in and solve for y, and now I just plot these points. My first point, point 1, is -2, -2. Remember, it's x, y. So x -2, y -2. X -1, y is 0. Remember, that's on the coordinate plane. 0, 2, so x is 0, y is 2. It's on that 0 point. 1, 4 is here. 2, 6 is way up here. And then there's my line. So there's your steps on all of those. So here's the reality of the situation. I actually just taught you lesson 109 and 110 together. 109 was supposed to just be the T-charts. 110 was supposed to be the graphing of those T-charts. So here's what we're going to do. I don't want to remake my whole video, which means you're going to do all of lesson 109. But what I also want you to do is I want you to graph 1, 2, nope, 1 and 3. If you'll graph 1 and 3, we will not worry about doing lesson 110, and we'll just do these 2 videos this week and be done because I combined them. So you're going to do all of lesson 109, classwork activities 1, 2, and 3. Classwork 1, we already actually did a couple of those together. Activity 2, it asks you just to find the value of y when x equals 5. Activity 3 is what we just did. It's making the T-chart, finding the points, but then graph those. And then number 4 is just solving for x. So it's a little bit of a review. All right, so since I got ahead of myself, you then reap the consequences and only have to do this second video this week, and we are done. Listen, if you get bogged down in this or you get confused, shoot me a quick text message.